How's it going, Aaron?
Going great, Paul. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Very pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you as well. Thanks for the time.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. You're looking fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's very
I'm totally hetero, but you work out, right?
I do. Yeah, it's you can imagine during COVID times, man, there was just like, what else are you going to do for like a year? For a year and a half, I couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't be anywhere. So might have overdone it a little bit the last year, but it's a good way to keep saying it, I found.
No, that's awesome, dude. So what do you bench?
Right now, I'm older now, so you have to keep in mind that if I go too heavy, then I've got to call a doctor. But if I can max at 315, that would be that I consider that a good day. But I don't do it very often.
Yeah, 315 pounds. I wonder what that is in kilos.
What would that be in kilos? So would that be about 130, 125, I think.
Wow. Okay, so that's how much I weigh. You can bench me.
There you go.
That's impressive. I can barely carry me.
That's hilarious.
Oh, dude. I'm so pleased to see you. Thank you so much for your time. I know you don't have a lot of it. So what time is it where you are now?
It's a little after lunchtime here, so 1 o'clock p.m. I think I'm 5 behind you guys. So yeah.
Right. Okay. And where are you based? Are you in New York or?
No, I'm way outside of the hub. I'm about 2 hours south of Washington D.C. in Richmond, Virginia. Yeah.
Oh right. Yeah, Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, nice. Good. Do you have barbecue there in Richmond or?
Yeah, I don't want to down the people of Richmond either. The major barbecue hubs in the States are Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, St. Louis. We've got some good barbecue. It's not one of the hubs, but you can always find some good stuff. But
what's Virginia like most famous for other than CarLotz?
Well, some of the things aren't so great, like the Confederacy, like the seat of the sword.
Oh, that old thing.
But more recently, I do believe that this city has gone through a very powerful renaissance. So it's become known as a great place to, people that like outdoor living. There's some great hiking trails. There's some great biking trails. And, it's very friendly for outdoor. It's been a huge renaissance or really a birth, not even a renaissance in craft breweries. It's a great place. It's been a huge restaurant culture. You find that people from New York and other bigger markets, after they do their sous chef training, they'll come down to Richmond. They can invest in a spot, put their own stamp on it, and build something. And it's been one of the fastest growing areas, post-pandemic, because you can get, within an hour's drive, you can be in the mountains, you can be at Virginia Beach, and you have really a low cost of living. So I think the future is really bright for Richmond. I landed here quite by accident, only to start CarLotz with my partners, but it's really become home. I'm really proud of some of the developments here.
How long have you been there, and where do you originate from?
I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. So that's where for me, that's where the love of the car business came from. But I moved down here. It'll be actually it's been 10 years. So it'd be 11 years in April of next year. So so it's for me.
I was going to say that's a good amount of time to get to know an area, become a local easily after a decade of being there. Like it can take a long time to get to know all the ins and outs and the culture of a people in a certain area. So yeah, a decade's a good amount of time.
It can, and how adult time goes a little bit differently than student time. For example, when I moved to Boston to go to college, it was like, I felt like I was getting all of it, because you're out, you're hanging out with your friends. Your friends are kind of built into your school or whatever you're doing. Or for people who've been in the military and been to other places, their experiences kind of come with them. I found that when I got here, I was so focused on the business for the first several years, I really didn't get to plug in much. But as I got to, I was really proud of where we ended up. So now, I'm married, I've got a daughter. I mean, we're really plugged in now between school and everything else. So, but you're right. It took about a decade.
Congratulations. Like how old is your daughter? How long have you been married for?
Well, it'll be 7 years married on the 22nd. So my anniversary is this week.
Hey, you remembered. Kudos.
I did.
The wife is going to give you
I did. No,
well done.
Fortunately, my wife's not one that'll give me a hard time if I did forget. I haven't never tested that, but she's not so big. It's more for her the sentimentality of spending the time to go after it, not so much the date. But it's just been so ingrained in me that you see all the sitcoms, the husband who forgets. I just don't want to be that guy.
That's me. I'm that guy. Honestly, my poor wife Naomi, I forget birthdays and anniversaries and all sorts. I try and keep them all on the same day if possible, so I've only got the one thing to remember.
Well, I'm lucky in that regard. My anniversary is November 22nd. My daughter's birthday is December 22nd. So it's really just one number I got to remember for a lot of things, and keep the couple birthdays in mind.
And how old is your daughter now?
She's 4. She'll be 5 next month.
I've just got 2 young daughters as well. So my eldest is 2.5, or just a bit over that. So she's in that phase where she knows everything, and I know nothing. And even if I give her what she wants and what she originally requested, I'm still somehow in the wrong.
It's being a girl dad is amazing. Being a toddler dad is amazing, watching them grow. But there's also something about just now, because of their, they've got access to technology. We treat kids with a lot more respect than when I was growing up. I grew up at the tail end of the kids should be seen and not heard kind of era. So not too many questions, just go sit with the other kids. The kids now, like, they actually have interesting things to say. They've got a lot more inputs. So
they are just miniature adults, aren't they? They just then sometimes not able to regulate their emotions as well as adults, only because they don't have as much experience at doing it. My youngest daughter, she's like 7 months as well now, so she's just sitting up and starting to move a little bit, and very cute. So I'm enjoying having the both of them, but I am very tired.
I can only imagine that, and they're close together. The good news is, and I only have the one, so I don't know this from my personal experience, but they're close enough, and you've got the older sister kind of baked in. So, if they're close, hopefully that gives you some relief soon. But I know in the beginning, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the plan, just like get them both out of the way. And I think now, finally, we've learned our lesson. We're not going to have any more.
That's right. I bet there's a lot of 1 and 2 and dones from people just like, I can't, I miss my sleep.
Who would voluntarily think that this is a good idea? That's what I want to know. Like,
it's not easy. You don't just go stumbling into that.
The reason we're here is because I just recently started on ThePowerMBA, and I started working through module 1, and you were there as like a guest host, a guest case study or speaker, and you resonated with me, and I thought, oh, that guy, like, I need to talk to him. I need to find out more about his journey, about what he's done. And I thought, should I reach out? And I thought, what's the worst that can happen? Like, you're either going to say no and you've lost nothing, but now I'm in the amazing position that you've given me some of your time. So can we learn about your journey, about what gave you the idea, a bit about your background, and how you developed this idea and this business of CarLotz?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, kudos to you for the bias towards action. I love that mindset. What's the worst that can happen, right? Like, either have an amazing conversation or have none. And also shout out to the PowerMBA. It's, for me, the introduction to the global community has just been amazing. So I'm really grateful to that team for allowing me to be a part of that. For me, CarLotz, the seed of my passion for the business started growing up in Detroit. I started selling cars when I was about 16 or 17. So I was in high school, and I would sell cars as a way to make a few extra bucks for the summer, to underwrite my spring break trips and that kind of thing, pay for books. Instead, I wouldn't have to work as hard during term time, doing hourly jobs. I would just come home for a summer, spend 10 or 12 weeks selling cars. And it was a very lucrative business, especially at the time. So I could come back with, the equivalent of a year's worth of term time jobs. And to boot, I really, really liked it. I like cars. I like people. I like the sales aspect. And I learned a ton. It was a complicated business, but it was very operations heavy. It was very people focused, and it was a lot of fun. And years later, when I met my partner, Mike, it was quite serendipitous. I had a friend from business school who found himself in Richmond, Virginia, actually running one of Capital One's card groups. He had relocated to Richmond to do that work, met my partner who lived in Richmond at the time. And he called me 11 years ago and said, I met this guy who's got this idea for selling cars on consignment. Now, his background is in automotive. My background is in automotive, but I told him he should call you. Because I know you've been selling cars. And by this point, I had run traditional dealerships. I was an automotive consultant at McKinsey for a couple of years. I'd really been thinking hard about the space. But that introduction was quite by chance. He was working on a thing, I was working on a thing, and then we met. And it so happened I lived in Boston at the time. My partner's mom lived in Boston, so we just visited, hanging out in his mom's basement as though we're in our 30s, but it felt like we were we were kids in college working on a business plan. And that's where it started to sprout. We worked on this idea, starting to think about Mike from his perception of what the business was like as a consumer, my perception as an operator, and started thinking through how we could solve.
The last thing you said was you're in your friend's mom's basement.
Oh yeah.
You did the business plan.
Yep.
And then that was about it, I think. Yeah. Sorry.
No worries. No, I mean, we should be amazed by the technology that allows us to speak thousands of miles apart. So
and also reconnect as well. Like
exactly.
Even when an error happens, it pulled it back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So mistakes will happen. But yeah, as we were working on this plan, it was really just Mike had the seed that the innovation was selling cars via consignment would disrupt a lot of the noise in the car space, and that when you don't have the pressure of owning an asset, you've got a depreciating asset on your balance sheet. You got to pressure the next person to buy it. You got to pressure the person that sells it to you to sell it for you as low as possible. If I own it on consignment, I should be able to have a friendlier interaction. And the perspective that I brought was from having run car dealerships, like that sounds great in principle, but how do you actually motivate people to sell a car if you don't pressure your customers? How do you actually design a system that allows people to sell professionally? Because if you do this poorly, you're actually worse than a traditional car dealership because you're selling other people's cars, right? Like,
so, like what would the benefit be? You're selling other people. Yeah,
exactly.
There has to be some sort of motivator there, doesn't there, for the person who's selling the cars?
That's right. So what we found was, and I was just very, one of the things I've learned a lot of things from working with Mike, but I was always so appreciative of his vision and his bias towards action, and that he knew nothing about the space, had never sold a car, had never worked in a dealership, but just it brought like a fresh perspective in a sense that I know it's broken. I know that much. So if I can fix it, all more power to me. And at the same time, humble enough to bring in folks who could be river guides like myself and kind of help think through, well, here's how it actually works. Not that we're married to how it actually works, but it works like this. So if we're going to disrupt it, here are the things we need to think about. And those first meetings were really, I still have notes from, this is 11-year-old notes from those early meetings. And the things we talked about were culture, recruiting, like the real DNA of a business. We really got to the core, even from the very first days.
Wow, that's amazing. And then how do you go from having that idea in the basement, making those notes, to turning it into a fully fledged operation? Obviously that must be a massive expansive question, but if you could summarize like the first sort of steps, like, because you'll be very excited, won't you, in that initial phase, and then how do you take that idea to actualization?
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. In those first days, you think about those very first meetings, when you think you have an idea that's got legs, it's almost euphoric. Like this is great. This is awesome. We're going to crack the code. We're going to take over the world. It's going to be the best thing ever. But there's so many things that have to happen from inception to execution that as you start to spell them out, it's a little scary. So one of the first things, was just the idea itself. And that's just, we have to do some work to convince ourselves before we ask for $1. If this idea is so awesome, why doesn't it already exist?
Yeah.
And those are hard questions to answer because you're kind of answering these counterfactual, like if that, there's a lot of things that don't exist that would be awesome, or just, we're good ideas at bad times. But we had to think through that because we knew that was going to be an FAQ of our investors. So spend some time thinking through that. And that sobered us up a little bit. Like, okay, actually, this isn't as straightforward and easy as we thought. Like there might be some valid reasons why people haven't done it that we'll have to tiptoe around and figure out a better way to do it. Or there have been some people who've tried and here's where they missed. So we've got to be the second mouse to get the cheese. And as you start thinking through that takes time. We did that for months. And then we started to pressure test the idea with some investors and some advisors, looking for advice in the beginning. We got some good feedback. So, I wouldn't go too big. I'd scale it. I'd go small, learn, plot along. I wouldn't raise this much. I'd raise that much. I would do it in a market that's friendly. I would do it in a place that and we got some good advice. And we finally went to the market and to raise money, and the rubber started to hit the road. I remember Mike made a deal with me. He said, all right, I think it's time for us to, you're gonna have to quit your job and let's just do this thing. There's no more basement meetings and phone calls. We got to go. He said, if I can raise the money, are you ready to quit? I said, absolutely. Mike went on some fundraising calls. I'm thinking it'll be 3-6 months. You know, I'm kind of winding things down slowly, looking at apartments in Richmond. He called me in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He said, I got it. You ready?
Oh my God. So what was that like when he called you and he made that call? And
again, there are those moments where it's like, oh, this is going to be great. And it's like, oh, you mean like right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, the things that you clung to, the security of your job, whatever mattered to you, the routine, the prestige, whatever you care about and what you do, your identity is going to change overnight.
Yeah.
Like it's not that anymore. It's going to be this. And this thing doesn't even exist. You know, I showed up to Richmond. We don't have an office. We don't have a website. It's just literally just us with an envelope full of money to go make it happen.
But you obviously rose to the challenge, and then you know, what did you do? You packed up your whole life and said to your family, like, hey guys, I'm out of here. Like I've got to go and follow this dream.
I'll tell you what was cool about this was the fact that having laid the road work for the passion in this industry, having sold cars as a kid, having talked about wanting to buy dealerships and all this stuff, having weathered some of the storm in 2008, and I was actually running a dealership and had an opportunity, you know, just flame out because of the 2008 crisis. For most people who knew me well, and even the ones who didn't know me very well, they were extremely supportive. So the call to mom, hey mom, great news. Okay, great. I know that's something that you want to do. The call with the partner I was working with at McKinsey, you know, I thought was, so that's awesome. I think you guys will be a client one day. Go get it. This is awesome. The peers on my team, you know, took me out for drinks. Like, tell me more about it. How are you thinking about it? Just a lot of excitement and just enthusiasm for it, which was great because you needed that. I needed the escape velocity, right? To like,
that's really cool because, like, you know, the last thing you need is when you have a nice idea is to be kind of dragged back down to earth by naysayers. Like, obviously, you know, people, you know, like they have their own viewpoints and opinions and you know, they call themselves realists, but every now and then someone will go, that's not going to work. Or, you know, did you have any of that? Did you have any negative feedback?
I got lots of negative feedback. You know, there was lots of negative feedback from potential investors. I mean, there were hundreds of calls to get to the folks who said yes. I mean, I don't want to Mike moved quickly, but it wasn't without its own roadblocks. There were lots of folks that you float the idea to, and they said, well, that doesn't make any sense. So, and I did have some other peers at McKinsey that were questioning the idea, even after I was a year or 2 or 3 into running it. So there was always that. But I just never felt, and maybe it's that I chose to selectively omit those memories and more focused and be grateful for the people who were supportive.
Yeah.
My girlfriend, now wife, was super supportive. Like, I knew you were an entrepreneur. I believe in you. Let's go. Like, that's the voice I'm going to see more of. That's the face I sit across from the dinner table with. So that's who I care the most about anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably what made her the wife, eh? Because
that's right.
She's your biggest cheerleader, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, you know, when somebody can see a level of potential in you when you're starting with a piece of paper, you know, that gives you a lot of motivation. And frankly, you know, I didn't want to let her down. Like, I felt now, you know, I asked her to be a part of this journey. You know, she moved to Richmond. You know, she pivoted some things in her career and how she thought of where she was going to end up. So, you know, so I always looked at it positively. So I had a lot of support from my family. I had a lot of support from my close friends. Yeah. A lot of my close friends became investors. They became customers. They were people that really supported our business. So I focused on that. There were a lot of naysayers. There still are a lot of naysayers, maybe more now than there were then. But I think that's part of the journey is learning not to focus on it. I'm grateful, though. I never had the mindset of forget the haters, blah, blah, because I think it overemphasizes the power of people to drag you down. So I was more like, let's look at the cheerleaders instead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wise. Yeah, because you don't want to give that aspect too much energy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what's the what are your goals? I'm conscious you've not got too much time. What are your goals moving forward into the next year, the next 5 years for CarLotz?
Yeah, well, CarLotz, you know, so I left the company in January when we rolled over to the IPO. So I left the board, and you know, I'm obviously a shareholder, and now I'm a cheerleader. So you know, for me, my goals are to make myself available where I can, to support the team where I can, and really, you know, wherever possible, formats like this, to be able to be a cheerleader for the great work that the team did and is doing. I think, you know. Right now, we get a ton of liquidity in the market. There's tons, you know, there's IPO activity. There's a lot of M&A activity. It's easy to feel like, you know, right now it's like decacorns are the new unicorns, right? Like, people are getting $1 billion valuations left and right.
So
it's really hard to undervalue the hard work that goes into building awesome things. So for me,
so like right now, are you sort of semi-retired?
I wouldn't say semi-retired.
You've made it. That's it. You're so young. Oh my God.
No, I've gotten involved with some other startups. So, namely, I've gotten, there's a fintech based here in Richmond called Mission Lane that's doing some really good work for the underbanked. In fact, the CEO is a gentleman who introduced me to my partner, Mike, so many years ago. So I've been working with them for the last year and a half. There's some other great startups that are working on helping people build emergency savings, helping people have affordable healthcare, helping people in early education have access to tutoring and resources that they wouldn't otherwise have. And frankly, even my work with the ThePowerMBA, Paul, was like, this notion of democratizing access to resources that used to be scarce became really important to me along the journey, especially towards the end at CarLotz, where I just realized I've had these extraordinary opportunities that a lot of folks are being blocked out of. And if you've seen, I think I made some remarks in the Power MBA, listen, loved my Harvard MBA, it was awesome, but like $100,000 in 2 years of your life and the opportunity cost of not getting paid is incredibly expensive. And it's a big ask. And there's only, 1,000 seats a year. So the idea of being able to open up something like the Power MBA, and have thousands of people in every cohort.
And completely disrupt that as well.
Totally. I think that's tremendous. I think we need more of that. Definitely.
So, wow. So for now, what seems to be driving you is because you've been given this ability through your entrepreneurial side, you're giving back now, right? Is that right? Is that what drives you?
I've been passionate about teaching and executive education and really helping people think through the challenges of disruption for a long time. I'm just grateful now that thanks to Zoom and formats like this, and there's just more opportunities. There's more platforms to share that type of stuff. Even LinkedIn is one of those examples where even without an affiliation with an institution, you can just go on, spout off, and let people share knowledge. So I think there's a lot there. But one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about is disruption in places where there hasn't been much. And I'll give you an example. Criminal justice system here in the U.S. is one that's been the way it has been for a long time. When we think about cultural disruption, when we think about organizational behavior, we apply it to corporate settings very easily because we think, you change the bonuses, you change the salary, you change the desk, you put in a slide. We don't do that as much with federal agencies, with state agencies, with not-for-profits. So I want to start to focus some energy there and help people who are motivated to disrupt, who are motivated to innovate, and start applying some of the lessons that we learned in the corporate space.
From a sort of an ignorant outsider, I only really know about the United States justice system from what I see on TV or in films or documentaries. So I'm really I'm just talking to somebody who's got that kind of knowledge.
Sure.
But it seems like you have a similar sort of system to ours here in the UK, but then you've got these very strange rules. You've got like the 3 strikes and you're out kind of rule. You have like people in states who are in prison for drug laws like holding cannabis, where they get longer sentences than people who do more serious crimes, and then the drug is legalized, and then those people are still in prison as well. And it seems kind of crazy to me as an outsider that and also having private prisons as well, where it's almost like a prison industrial complex where they put pressure on people to make more things illegal, and the manufacturing that goes on in prisons as well funds part of the economy. That's a massive topic.
And the numbers are devastating. When we talk, some of the other things that we talked about, like the fintech innovation, the education innovation, things like that, when they actually do the studies, I was talking to some folks at the Fed a couple months back. They do these studies, they look back and they find that the root cause for a lot of these things, a lot of the ills in society are mass incarceration. So we can, fix education, you can fix all these things, but like at the end of the day, if you can't fix this thing, you're going to be painting over the same cracks over and over and over again. So this one's a big one. This one's a big one.
Yeah. And to quote Tony Blair, I don't know if you know who Tony Blair is, but you got to be tough on crime, but you've also got to be tough on the causes of crime as well.
Right.
And that doesn't mean being hard on the people who commit crimes as much as it is changing the environment where those people live and grow up and giving them better opportunities so that they don't have to commit crime.
Yeah,
you know, like
right.
wherever they are, like it's just you know, or whoever they are, you can't expect a society of people to you know, live a certain way if you are depriving them of you know, basic things like healthcare, schools, you know, law in the streets, and a clean environment and a safe environment and public transport and health, right, and stuff like that. Like, you know, it just seems like madness that you have somebody, I don't want to get too political, but like you've got you've got you know, the president, you know, God save him or whatever, but he's been in politics for like 50 years, and you know, it's about time he does something about this now.
I could go on about this all day. I agree with all of your sentiments, and the notion of, you know, of real true change here, you know, and even as we evolve our notion of crime, right? Like you said, like, you know, right now we're legalizing marijuana, but we're still incarcerating people who had it 25 years ago. You know, it was illegal to drink in the U.S. 100 years ago. Like that, I mean, I can have a beer today. Like let people out, let them start their life again, right? Well, so there's so much work to be done, but I think part of the challenge is, like with a lot of other things, it gets so daunting, you turn away and say, like, I'll just leave that problem for someone else. But I think for me, one of the biggest lessons I learned from my time at CarLotz, and just the extraordinary people I work with, from my partners and the people that we hire, is that, you know, stranger things have happened, right? Like you can put your mind to an idea, put your nose to the grindstone, and things can really change.
I was going to say, speaking of beer, have you heard of the Guinness World Record that the ThePowerMBA are going to try and break right now?
No.
Okay. Do you want to join me in this Guinness World Record attempt?
Well, you got to tell me what it is first.
Okay. So here I have a Guinness here.
Okay.
And you know, all you need is a drink. Just any drink in a clear glass. Yeah. And I'll send you a new Zoom link.
Okay.
We both join, and we'll be joining people in the ThePowerMBA.
Okay.
And then all we do is we hold the glass up and we say cheers in our own language, which for you is, you know, cheers. And for me, you know, I'll say sláinte, which is, you know, Irish for cheers.
Okay.
And then you take a sip and you do that. That's it. And
that's it. What's the record? How many people before this?
It was September the 11th of this year, and it was a Japanese company, and there's 350 people.
Wow.
So we can smash that.
This is awesome. I'm in.
Do you want to do it? Okay.
I'm in.
So I don't know if you have a beer or something, but it has to be in a glass. So I've
got glasses. I'll find something.
Okay. I'll be back in a couple of minutes with the link, and so we'll wrap this up, and I'll send you a link now. Do you want it by email? Is that the best way?
That'd be the best way.
Awesome. Right. I'll do that now. All right, Aaron, I'll see you in a minute.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.